Hello, welcome to the inaugural edition of WrestleDiary. This is a new series I'm quite excited to be starting on my channel. I've tried to kind of do something like this before. I had This Week in Wrestling where I talked about kind of the main matches I'd watched that week, but the truth is sometimes I don't watch wrestling. Sometimes I watch wrestling all the time. I'm a huge wrestling fan. The first video posted on this channel 6 years ago was about wrestling. I started this channel about wrestling, and of course my bigger love of movies took over, but I really got excited about wrestling this past couple of weeks, and so I wanted to do some videos about them. I wanted to group them together. So this is going to kind of be basically my version of a wrestling Letterboxd, where I'll just talk about some of the key matches I've watched over however long a period of time it is. I could go weeks, months, years without doing an installment of this Wrestle Diary. It's just a video diary of wrestling I've watched and my thoughts on it. And the first one we're going to kick things off with is the Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada Wrestle Kingdom 11 match from January of this year in the Tokyo Dome. New Japan Pro Wrestling for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and I am a complete newbie to Japanese wrestling as far as watching it properly. I won't go into my whole history with wrestling, but you know, I wrestled for many years in my young adult life from the age of, I guess, you know, by the time I started doing wrestling a lot and regularly myself, I was about 15 up to about the age of 21 when I stopped doing it regularly. But all the guys I grew up with and wrestled with were into Japanese wrestling, so I saw a lot of it in clip form. You know, back in the days where music videos were basically your only source to watch wrestling outside of the WWE and from around Europe and the world, you know, Japan, it would be music videos. So I saw plenty of that stuff, but I never had seen and sat down and watched a full match from Japan. Well, maybe some of Mick Foley's stuff, but this match got so much hype. I downloaded it after it happened, and I was going to watch it, and I couldn't commit myself to sit down for an hour to watch this thing with the entrances and the post-match stuff and the match itself, which is about 45 minutes long. It was over an hour, and I just couldn't get into it, or couldn't get into the idea of sitting down to watch it. And it's funny because I listened to Stone Cold Steve Austin's review of the match, and he said kind of the same thing. He's like, I turned it on for 10 minutes, turned it off, watch another 10 minutes, and you know, that was kind of what I had going into it. It was like, oh, can I really sit down and invest the time when I could be watching half of a movie instead? And that's always been kind of a big thing for me, is, you know, yeah, I could watch this TV show, yeah, I could watch this wrestling event, but I could be watching a movie instead, and there's so many of those I want to see. But Kenny Omega, had never seen a full match of his before, unless you count the match with the 9-year-old girl, which is very controversial. I thought it was brilliant. And I'd seen his comedy stuff in clip form, but I'd never seen him wrestle a full match. From what I remember seeing clips of, he seemed like a very over-the-top, cartoony kind of wrestler. Okada I'd heard of, but had never seen. So I decided, for whatever reason, well, I guess there was a reason actually, they had their big rematch, and it was rated even higher than their first. So I thought, let's watch this. So what I did was I got the match and I watched it with Connie, my fiance, and I'd love to get her in this video, but you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I said, let's watch this match and see what you think of it, because we're both going into this with kind of fresh eyes. You know, I always am showing Connie stuff, whether it's new matches from WWE or old matches from WWE, and with this, it was something that we were both going to be seeing for the first time, both experiencing for the first time, this different style and all that kind of thing. And we watched it, we put it on, and we loved it. We went crazy for it. I mean, we were lying on our fronts on the bed watching it on the TV, and I think 3 or 4 times I literally jumped to my feet and got off the bed and was just like this. And I couldn't believe the things that I was seeing. It made me feel like a kid again. The only time I've ever felt like that, properly and truly, outside of actually being a kid, when I first got into wrestling, was Undertaker Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 25. I've never jumped to my feet since then, and I don't know if I'll ever do it again. Like, it just, there was something about it that was so captivating. These guys were killing each other with these moves, but there was this story that was being told, and there are many camps on this. Many people think this is the best professional wrestling match that has ever happened. I think you kind of get into dangerous territory when you start labeling stuff the best of anything. Of course, Dave Meltzer, noted wrestling critic, gave it 6 stars out of 5 and broke his own scale. I certainly don't disagree with him, because I often say, you know, a movie is a 10 out of 10 if I just think I love everything about it, you know. It doesn't have to be a perfect film, because that doesn't exist, but I'll give a film a 10 out of 10 if I just think that it is, if it's stunning, if it just floors me in some way, and that there's no real kind of big nitpicks. But there are films that I will give an 11 out of 10, in which I feel like that's one of the greatest films I've ever seen. Like, everything about that is superb. It's almost flawless, you know. So I get Dave Meltzer's kind of mindset. Some people think this match is just, it is what it is. It's good athletics, but there's no story or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and analyze it, but I'll just say that it made me feel like a kid again, and I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. I loved how there was these varying levels to the selling in Omega. Like, he would sell, like he would take a big move from Okada, and the look on his face was like, I'm fucked. And then after that, he'd take even more, and there was a look on his face that was like, I'm even more fucked. Like, there was these levels to his kind of extreme selling that just really brought me into it. It was incredible. It really, really was. Okada was really impressive, but Omega to me was the standout, because his style is so different. The speed that guy has. I mean, he has a great physique. He's very nimble. He can kind of do the high-flying stuff, but he's believable as this kind of heavyweight at the same time, which is very difficult to pull off, I think. And the speed, like, he just seems to attack those ropes in a way that I've never seen anyone do before, at least at his size. You know, you see some of the cruiserweights do that kind of stuff. And it just has such an explosiveness to it, the timing of it. I just never seen anything like it. You know, a guy of his size with that kind of an explosive speed that just was, again, just exciting to watch. It was new and it was refreshing. And from what I understand, this is him kind of doing it a bit more seriously. He often does go to that comedy well. But he's instantly become my favorite wrestler right now. Just narrowly pipping ahead of AJ Styles. We've since watched more of New Japan and more of his matches, and they've been phenomenal. I love his style, and this match was brilliant. I loved how his big finisher, the one-winged angel I think it is, he was going for it, he never hit it. He never hit it. This 45-minute epic, he never hit it. They had this table spot, which you rarely see in a match, someone really build up to a table spot where it's like they're going for it, they don't do it. And then out of nowhere it happens. That incredible back body drop over the top rope was just... And there's all these little moments in the match that are just so, like, holy shit, that looked like they killed each other. And the knees that Omega was giving to Okada, I mean, that would kill someone if you properly hit that, you know, full force. And it looks like he's properly hitting him full force, and that is the mark of a true professional wrestler. He's a professional about his job, because he does these things that look so dangerous, but clearly he's not, you know, he's not killing his opponent. And that's very difficult to do. It's very easy in wrestling to do things that look like shit and hurt like hell, but to do things that don't hurt and look incredible, that is where the real art of wrestling lies. And he seems to have nailed it, because if he had hit those knees as hard as he did, as many times as he did in that match, for real, you know, or wasn't doing them in a safe way that, you know, it's just really artful, Okada would have been knocked out and probably would have shaved years off of his career. I mean, there's just, I have a tremendous amount of respect for people who have that amount of timing to really make that look believable and to draw you into the reality of the story that they're telling, that it's an actual competitive contest going on between two athletes. And yeah, this has reignited my love for wrestling, and I've since went on and watched their rematch, which I might do another video about. But for this kind of installment of WrestleDiary, I just wanted to talk about one match. Future videos might have me talking about multiple matches and things like that. There's a lot I've watched recently. I'm just about to watch some of the New Japan American show they just did. So yeah, there's lots to talk about, but let me know your thoughts on the match if you've seen it. I highly recommend watching it in its full form. It's easy to skim through it or to watch a highlights package, but the story is in the full match, the full 45 minutes, and it's something that I haven't seen before. It was, I mean, it had a lot of kind of, you know, huge moves that would end any other match and they kick out of it. And yeah, I don't like that. I don't like these finisher fests, but it worked in this match because, and I knew who won. I knew that Okada won the match, and I was still so into it because I couldn't believe that Omega kept kicking out of the things that he was kicking out of, and the back and forth nature of it. But also, you know, Omega kept trying to hit that finisher and could never quite get it, and that was kind of I just loved it. Loved the story, loved the presentation, loved seeing a match this great where the crowd was reacting with awe. You know, it wasn't like, yeah, this is awesome, we are awesome. It was, whoa, literally just like, whoa. You know, it was so cool to have something where the crowd wasn't going into business for themselves and fucking throwing a beach ball around. Like, they were into this match, and it was, you know, I always joke with my friends, you know, when we used to wrestle and something good would happen, I'd be like, oh, Japanese applause. You know, we would joke that Japanese audiences are quite reserved, but you know, here they were so into it. And you know, times have changed too. Japanese crowds are probably a lot more vocal than they were in the past and have been historically, but I just love the reverence they show for the wrestling, and the feeling of them reacting to this match with awe. That's the only word I can use for it. Was so cool to hear, and so different and exciting, and it makes me want to watch more of New Japan. They've got the G1, I think, tournament coming up. I really want to check that out. I'm trying to get into everything. I've gone back and watched some of Okada's kind of big title matches. I still have a few more to watch, so lots to kind of talk about potentially in future videos. But what I'd like to do with this series is just kind of, you know, jump on and shoot a video whenever I've seen something good that I want to talk about, or something bad that I want to talk about. Because right now I'm going through a wrestling phase, and with me, ever since I became a fan, it always goes through phases. So, you know, there might be a time where I don't do one of these for years, but I could come back to it. You know, so I like this format of just WrestleDiary. I like the sound of it. I like the feel of it. I like just being able to sit down and add to this ongoing kind of chronicle for wrestling, which is not really going to be a popular thing for most of my subscribers, but I always like to do things that that I enjoy talking about, so I'm not going to limit myself. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to my thoughts on Okada and Omega. Okada is another one who's kind of really rising up there as one of my favorite wrestlers as well. I need to delve into more of the Japanese wrestlers in New Japan. So, oh, and I forgot one thing, and this is such a crucial point. I can't believe I forgot. After me and Connie had watched this match, I said to her, "So what did you think?" And she said, "That's one of the best matches that I've ever seen." And I was like, "Wow, awesome!" You know, in terms of, you know, where would it be? And she's like, "Top 2 probably." I'm like, "Top 2? Well, what's your number 1 then?" And she's like, "Probably this one." And I was like, "Really? Like, better than Shawn Michaels The Undertaker WrestleMania 25? And she was like, "Yeah, but I knew those guys. You know, I was invested in the story," is what she was trying to say. You know, I'd seen them wrestle before. I knew the story of the match. With Okada and Omega, just like me, she knew nothing of the story of the match. She didn't know either of those wrestlers, and she was so invested and so drawn in by it. And she said to me, "That makes it more impressive to me. So I think that's the best wrestling match I've ever seen." So that's that. If that's not a stamp of approval to make you watch that match, I don't know what is. But that for me, as a wrestling fan who's got my, you know, my significant other to kind of get into the thing that I enjoy, because there are people who get their girlfriends into wrestling, and you know, they go along with it and stuff, but she genuinely does enjoy it. And you know, she's definitely the type of person who would just say to me, "No, not interested," but she was interested, and she loved it. So I think we're both going to watch more of this Japanese stuff together. In fact, we both did watch more Japanese wrestling after that. Both from New Japan, we watched something from Stardom, which was a whole other different kind of beast. A match between Io Shirai and Kairi Hojo. I'd love to talk about that match, but I don't want to make this video too long, so I just want to throw that in there because I thought that comment from Connie was really cool, and I wanted to record that moment at least, just talking about it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause